and thanks for joining us on the Unofficial Controller podcast. It's me, RGT, and I am joined by the Essex Switch man himself, the main man when it comes to anything Switch, anything Game Gear, anything gaming, to be honest. That's Mr. Marathon Gaming, aka Scott. How you doing, Scott?
Hey, don't forget the Switch 2. I'm the Switch 2 man as well now.
Yeah, you will be. You'll be the big Switch 2 man when that come out. So will I, hopefully, if I get one. So this is a little show me and Scott are doing. And this is basically video game room tips and tricks, bit of a buying guide, bit of showing you how to set up, bit of trying to point you in the right direction. Basically, Scott has his own game room, and awesome it is too. I have my own game room, but they're all different. We all do things different ways. But I remember when I started my game room, I always used to think, how am I going to do this? What's the best way to do that? Where can I find this? Well, hopefully this will cover a few of these little pointers, a few of these little bases. This will tick off a bit of your list and think, that's how I do it. Should I use that TV? Should I use that system? Hopefully this will be a little bit of a show you can come back to and think, right, let's listen to what the boys do. Maybe it'll help you. We're both mad on our games, aren't we, Scott? I mean, our game rooms are very different, but very similar in
Yeah,
other
that's
ways,
what I think. Yeah, that's what I think this would be really good because we've got two, I think, very different games rooms. I think one of us may be more organised than the other. And I think yours is probably more purposed, and mine's, I think, has just started off as not knowing it was a games room, then it turned into it. So I
Mm,
think that's why it's really good having us talk about this. And
mm,
if you're listening to this show, you might be thinking, you might be thinking, I've already got a games room, but you might pick up a few things and change it. You might be listening thinking, oh, I want to have a games room. You may
mm.
already have one, you may not have one. It might be something that you're alluring to and inspiring to do in the future. So I think between the two of us talking, I think it'd be good to share quite a few tips. And I'm hoping to get some tips from yourself, RGT, and I'm sure it's feelings mutual and it's vice versa.
Yeah,
So
vice versa, definitely.
it's always good to talk game rooms, and the truth is, for anyone who's got a game room or has had one in the past, whether space has allowed you to, it really is never finished, and that's the beauty of it. It's always
Mm,
evolving, it's always adapting, things always changing, and whenever you think that's how I want it, give it 12 months, and you're as soon as you've got more stuff, you have to move things around, you have to change things. So it is forever changing. So that's what we're going to jump into today. We're going to go through everything from cable management, like RGT said, from CRTs to what systems we've got, to storage, to shelves, to displays. We're going to cover everything. So strap yourselves in and you're in for a nice show.
definitely. And I mean, and don't forget, people, I mean, you may look at some of the things we do and think, oh, well, I'd rather do it this way. If that's the case, jump in our Discord, have a chat about the show, jump on, say, oh, that's a great idea, or have you thought of doing this? And always remember, there's no right way of doing a games room. Every games room is individual to you. Whether you collect just Switch, whether you collect only Mega Drive, whether you collect a bit of everything, that's your own individual taste. I mean, if you're new to the show and this is the first time listening, if you've got a games room, join our Discord, chuck your pictures up on there. Let's have a
Oh,
look.
please. I was going to say, we'd love to. Everyone in the Discord loves to see people's collections and games rooms. So
Mm,
please do. It would be warmly welcomed and received. We love to see it. And it's a great bunch of people. It's not like you're going to get critiqued. We just literally,
no, definitely
we're,
not.
we're, we're like kids on a school playground. We just want to see who's got the shiny Pokemon card and have a little look. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean
jump
we've
on a
got
Discord, send a picture.
definitely. I mean we've got people in the Discord. We've got a guy who's just going for a full Dreamcast collection. We've got a guy who's got a games room in the garage. We've got people who just collect Japanese shooter imports. We've got a bit of everything, and they're all brilliant. There's no right or wrong way, but this might be a little help, a few little tips for you to put you in the right direction, especially if you're new to it, or even help you, even if you've got a game room you've been building for years. There might be a few little bits in here we can push you the right way and go, well, actually, we try this. This might be easier. Try that. So, we'll start
Yeah,
off. Sorry,
I was
carry
going
on,
to
Scott.
say, no, I was just going to say, I think that's a great place to start. I think you just mentioned whether you got it indoors or outdoors, so
Mm,
perhaps we could start it off there
yeah.
with location of the games rooms. Probably a best place to start, whether it is inside or outside.
Yes. I mean, mine and Scott's differ like that, although mine is being a new one of mine is being built at the moment, but we'll use my original for the purpose of this. Um, Scott's is indoor in his house, whereas mine was a purpose-built one in my garden. I'll start off with why mine was like that. I live in a very small place, so an extra room in the house was not the option, wasn't there. Um, and having chat to my father, who was a builder, he said, "Well, why don't we buy rather than buy something bespoke, which is quite expensive? Why don't we go down the route of buying a large shed stroke workshop and then kitting it out as a games room?" When I mean kitting it out, it was what if you bought a bespoke lodge or room or office for this, you're looking around about £10,000. Um, but I went with like I say, I went with a 20 foot by 12 foot. Um, it was like a workshop really, but a shed workshop. I upgraded it a bit to log lap rather than shiplap, so it was a bit nice on the outside, a bit more sturdy. I uprated the A frames inside because I put real heavy duty felt on. They were the only changes I made. Had windows down one side with doors in the gable. The windows I boarded up on the inside to prevent light coming in, and I also caged over those windows, but we'll go into that more with security. And then it was a case of having it put up, fully insulated, boarded, painted, carpeted. I found a Star Wars carpet, which was ideal for this room to give it that arcade vibe. Um, and then electric. So it was a very cost effective and low cost way of having a games room. Yes, I know some people will say security. Um, I'm lucky where I live. The crime rates are very low on that sort of thing. But it they do well to get inside because, as I said, windows are caged up and boarded up from the inside, so there's no way getting in there. Doors had two full length galvanized bars across. There was
Don't
about
forget the moat round the outside with the crocodile in RGT.
exactly moat with crocodile, full locks, top bottom on doors. There's probably five locks on each door, but a way of doing it so you could get in with the keys without having to undo too many. Security
Yeah.
lights, cameras,
You
and
could have,
alarms.
yeah, you could have,
All,
exactly. You could have alarms these days, but I
but
mean, ring doorbells are brilliant, aren't they?
yes, and
You
I
could have
had
everything.
I've had loads, as I said before, I am now building a new one due to different circumstances. But anyway, I had this one um, for 10 years, never had a leak, never had any maintenance. The only thing I'd done for the first 3 years was another coat of heavy duty stain to keep on top of that. Other than that, never had a problem, never had damp. I always had in the um, winter time, I always had heaters in on timers because you want to keep the temperature in there at the right temperature. You don't want damp, you don't want cold, especially with discs, and people worry about disc rot bits and pieces. This way, you keep on top of that. So I had a little time. I kept that temperature all the same. Summertime, I had an air cooler, air conditioner unit to keep it cooler because it did hold the heat in there really well. I mean, other than that, that was a very cost effective way. I mean, if you're listening to this and you're interested, and not so I know I keep saying about Discord, but it's the best way of contacting us. Contact in there, tag me in RGT and say, can you give me some tips? Can you give me some help how to do this, where I got it from, how I set it up? I'll be more than happy to help you. But that was a very good way of doing it. Electric wise, I had an electrician come in for a day, and I had four double plug sockets fitted along each side. To which then and obviously I had breakers and bits fitted, but also and then had onto power from then on for my consoles and lighting and bits and pieces from there. But that was my games room. But obviously yours, Scott, is very much
Yeah.
different, being an interior room.
Yeah, well, I thought I'd just touch on a couple of bits you said because quite interesting. Just if anyone listening, if you are thinking of having one external, just in case you're not familiar with DIY or anything like that, something that is quite worth thinking about. For example, I've got a garage at the back of my house. And a lot of people, when you say games room externally, they think it would be either a purpose-built shed, if you like a
Mm.
purpose-built shed, or it will be a garage. But I there you can get external. People get old shipping containers. People will get
Yeah.
old, almost like if you work on construction sites, you might see like they're not the metal shipping containers, but you can get like temporary site offices. People buy those and people sell
Yeah.
them kitted out. So there
Mm.
are actually some other options you can do. And
Definitely.
I've
Yeah.
actually got quite a few friends who've actually got some very large sheds and they do just sit in there. I can name, I mean, a few YouTubers. One that comes straight to head. I've got a friend, Paul Retrobait on YouTube. He has got a very, modest sized shed in his garden. No different to any, shed, but he's kitted it out so well, and he's got a massive Commodore 64 collection in his shed.
Mm.
And it's easy enough to chuck a bit of Celotex, which is basically like some rigid Kingspan, which is a rigid insulation,
Yep.
all around the walls and the top,
Mm.
and then you can cover that up. And like you say, you can get, battery lighting temporary. It's as much as you want to make of it, of how much time you're in there.
Yeah.
But if you
Exactly.
are looking to have a garage, which a lot of people do, so at the moment I've got basically from my old house, I've got a like my own personal gym. But when we moved house so many years ago, this wasn't kitted out of electrics, the roof leaks, there's asbestos and all that stuff. So it's never been sorted out. But without going off onto different things, I've basically changed my exercise and things. I'm less weights these days and I'm more running and everything else. But I went to look recently, just in the past 6 months or so, of finally getting that done, getting the garage sorted. So the first thing you need is power. Now, what stopped me from doing it was just how much it costs. So you've got to think if you want to get power to your garage, you've got to really think where your consumer unit is, which is where all your switches are in your house, whether that be near your electric meter or wherever it is in your house. And you've normally got to get an armored cable from there to the garage. So
Hmm.
mine's behind the garden. So it's a long way, which means it would be cutting multiple holes through the ceiling. So you need a cable run all the way through there. And then you need another tray behind that, to make good the plastering, then painting. And then you've got to get the cable, under your slabbing or decking all the way. So normally you buried it because normally a big armored cable. And then you've got
Hmm.
to get it all the way to your garage. And it normally has its own consumer box there, like a small
Yeah.
one, fuses. So it is worth thinking about because I know I had a lot of friends in the past where they've tried to do a games room and I've seen it before where they've rather than do that, and it is quite expensive, but that is the correct way. So do have a look. It put me off doing it because I couldn't afford it. But if you've got electric near the back of your house, you're fine. Mine was a complete other end, so it would have cost a fortune for the
Yeah.
armored
I was
cable.
lucky when mine ran off the back of the house from a plug socket that was
Yeah.
just literally 20 feet away, armored
Well, that's
cable,
what.
and we
Yeah,
went
that's what I
straight in.
was.
Then I had breaker box, fuse box, and then I had four double sockets, which doesn't sound a lot, but the reason I done that
Yeah,
was I then ran multi sockets. Now I'll recommend sockets for you. This is another little tip. Go for multi sockets, but go for them with individual switches on each plug because you
yeah,
don't want all that power going through and then all that off, because if you then start putting a couple of heaters in the winter, they're high wattage, they'll blow that fuse. So put individual multi sockets of individual on off switches and make sure they're surge protected. So if you do get a
yeah,
surge, bit like anything, you aren't going to fry your consoles. I mean, they're about 20 £25 each, but if you get 10 block or 12 block ones of those, you get four of those, you've got more than enough for your TVs and your consoles, depending on what you want. Plus, you then got LED lighting round. I never had lights wired in or anything. I just done plug in LEDs. That was more than good enough. And it gave it that arcade feel as well.
yeah. 'Cause I was going to say that, like, by the sounds of it, yours is like, so you've come off the back of your house from a socket. So some electricians will come around depending what you're powering up on there. So if you're having multiple arcade cabs, a lot of people have arcade cabs in the garages because they're too heavy to get upstairs, and rightly
Mm-hmm.
so in the house, unless you're on the ground floor flat or something, and you've got the room for it. But if you come off of a cable, it depends on how. So like my cabling, I think is it's not a new build; it's quite fairly old, so it wouldn't have held a capacity. So the electrician said, "Look, I can do it, but it's a bit naughty." So that's why we didn't go down that route. But if you
Mm,
literally just want a light and a plug socket, you can just tap off the closest external socket. You can
yeah,
definitely do that.
yeah,
But really, like you say, surge protector is a great shout. But really, what you want to get is enough power there so you can have your own, what do you call it, your own RCD. You want it to trip out
yeah,
your own breaker, and
yeah,
all that
yeah,
means really, it's on any modern house, any new build, it's standard regs. All it means is if you plug something old in, like an old machine, if it's something wrong with it, rather than it causing a fire or blowing the machine, all it does, it trips a switch out
yeah,
and it protects everything. That's literally all it does. So,
yeah, yeah.
so yeah, there
Brilliant.
are options, but speak to an electrician is what I'd say. Because yeah, there's all sorts of different things you can do. But yeah, I mean, you can have purpose-built sheds, old offices, containers. People built them out of anything really. So there's lots of different things. It's not just it has to be in a garage. So
No,
yeah, it's
no,
really
no, not
yeah.
at all.
So that's what RGT's got a nice external. And you're on are you on 2.0 now or 3.0? Is this the second one you're building?
Second one I'm building now. So this one's going to be a bit of a different design.
Yeah.
Still going to be a shed, but it's custom built. This one. Hopefully, if the plans work out right, it's going to be an L shape. So
Oh,
yeah, so it's a way of putting it in a corner with a bit more wall space, but a smaller footprint on the floor. If you see what I mean,
is
because of the L shape. So
yeah. Is that a nod to Longhorn or 2024 season of the Unofficial Controller podcast? Is it a nod to him, the
a
L?
solar. If you're looking from Starlink or one of the satellites, you'll see a nice big L
Yeah.
in my garden in tribute to Longhorn. But yeah, so I'll go down that route. I forgot actually how how big a job it was when I first done it, but this time
Yeah.
I had friends and that, and my father and that helped me build the last one. We bought the shed locally, but flat, come on a flatbed, and we built it ourselves in a day, and then went over the next couple of weeks insulating, board and paint, and getting the
Oh,
carpet in.
fair play to you, mate. Oh,
But
I
this
hate
one,
doing DIY. I
yeah, or
hate it.
this one, the company that are doing it, they say, "Oh, do you want us to come and fit it? Yes, please. Do you want us to insulate it for you? Yes, please. Do you want us to board it for you? Yes, please." So I thought, well, I'll slap a bit of paint about. I'm fine with that, and then the rest I can just
Yeah.
tweak as I go along. Then, but yeah, that's mine. So, what about your room then, Scott?
Yeah, so mine's probably seen as more of a conventional. So it is inside. Mine is in a spare room. So it is a proper spare room. So we have like a guest bedroom, and we often have family round and sisters because they live up in the city in London. So we have a spare room, but then basically this bedroom, it just kind of it was never planned to be a games room. So it basically was just for the junk. So it'd be where you get changed in the morning if you don't want to wake your other half up. It would be almost like an extension of your loft. You know,
Mm,
it would be
mm.
the Christmas tree went in there, the Hoover, anything you don't want guests to see went in this room. And it ended up being a bit of a junk room. I turned it into a bit of a workout room, and it kind of become a bit of everything. And then I basically in the previous houses, I think when I started getting into retro gaming and started buying it for it again, so I got rid of all my stuff, I rebrought it. First things I got was an NES and the Pikachu N64. It was in our first flat, so it was a couple of properties ago, and we got married in 2013. So it must have been 2012, I guess, around London
Hmm.
Olympics time. Yeah, it must be in 2012, around London Olympics. So I bought those two consoles. I kept them in a tub. I played with them, put them away. Obviously, the missus doesn't want to see things out. These
Hmm.
days, you have all your media on a nice shelf. Well, back then,
Yeah.
you had little shelves underneath, didn't you? Now it's minimal. So I had a little tub. We moved house. The tub was there, but it got bigger. There was two tubs. I found a local gaming shop. I started proper getting into my retro again. It grew. Then we got to this house, and then I realised with the junk room, I was like, hold on a minute. I don't need to put things back in my tub anymore. So all I did was I had an LCD TV in the corner, and it's a perfect TV. It's still my favourite TV in this room. It's like a perfect um, hybrid of old and modern. So it's got like it plays Atari like through an RF brilliantly, but it's got like HDMI, it's got SCART points, it's got the red, green, blue, it's got everything in there. So basically, I just had one little TV in the corner on a box, which all my games are in, and I just sat in there like in the corner on the floor. And then when I realised the missus didn't say anything, and realised that hold on a minute, she's not telling me to put this stuff away. I was like, I could expand here. And then I basically went on to like Facebook Marketplace or Gumtree, whatever it was, and I just got like a free gaming chair that someone was getting away rid of, and it started in that corner. So basically, all of my games room, if you watch like my early videos on Marathon Gaming on YouTube, everything's from one angle, and that's because all my stuff was 2 meters. All I had was a corner of the room, and then it built out. So my room
You ought to do
literally,
a time lapse of it. That looked like
yeah, I
Venom. That
should
looked like
do,
Venom climbing over Peter
yeah,
Parker as it grows out of the corner of the
yeah.
room.
But that's literally what it was. So I used the corner of a room, and then basically the deal with the missus was she said, "Look, happy for you to have turn this into a games room. It grow as long as you keep it tidy." So I basically found a place for everything else that was there. The old gym stuff went back in the garage. Things went upstairs in the loft and whatnot. Got rid of some stuff, and basically it came the games room. So that's what's quite interesting is as we go through this list of things. you'll realize that there is more than one way to do things. So you can buy things purposely from IKEA, and if you watch like big YouTubers or whatnot, like for example, like Retro Ghetto has got nice picture shelving for the games.
Mm.
There's a certain way people display things. Now I've done things a little bit different because mine's grown. Everything in it is pretty much free. Like there's a TV that I found some old lady was giving away around the corner. The stand underneath it I found outside someone's house as I was jogging past, and
Yeah.
I chucked it over my shoulder and carried it. So you don't have to have money to do it. You can do
No.
it literally on a complete budget, and that's what this is going to be great for. Before I wrap up, just saying that this is an internal one. A spare room isn't the only place. You can do it like how I started. You can just do it in a corner. You might just have like an office at home. You might think, hey Scott, RGT, I haven't got room. I've got kids in a house. I'm in a 2-bedroom flat. I can't do
Mm.
this. But you can just have a look. You don't need a lot of space, especially if you watch my early videos. I had so much stuff and had so many games and stuff, and I just kept it in a corner. And you can keep things in these plastic storage tubs.
Yeah.
Another great place you can have a games room inside as well. I'm going to give a shout out to him. He's actually had to change his YouTube name because he lost access to the account, unfortunately. But his name's Roger. He lives in Clacton in Essex. Roger Retro Gamer, it used to be called. Now he's called Retro. I think he's called Roger Hulkster. He's a very big guy. He's in his gym. He loves collecting like Mega Drive, Master System, 60, everything. He's got an impressive collection, just like yours, RGT.
Mm.
And his videos are brilliant because his is in the loft, and you can
Yeah.
sort of. It takes you a while to realise that, but yeah, a lot of people will turn their lofts into games rooms. But I just want to say, and again, another disclaimer just to help people. If you do that, make sure you have got insulation before you build out your
Hmm.
loft between each of the joists, well, between the trusses, and then get a nice deck over it, and just be aware of how much weight you're putting on. So look at where like the rafters are and put heavy things on there.
Mm.
And then do also be cautious of circulation with air. So, for
Yeah.
example, on old houses, we used to have a wet ridge tile, and that's why if you go in like your mum or your nan's house, you might find in the loft there's always moisture. Or if you touch the side, there's moisture. So these days, new builds in the last 10 years or so, what you have now is like a dry ridge tile along the top. Without getting too boring and technical, all it is it's mechanically fixed, and there's a gap between the felt of about an inch right at the
Mm.
top. And all that does, it allows a bit of air to circulate, and it allows it to escape. So it stops you getting condensation, stops you getting too hot. But I'm sure I've seen it. I've seen gamers sweating and they can't go up there in the summer. So when you build out your loft, which you can do, make it look nice, just make sure you don't cover the top. You've got to give somewhere for the air to
Yeah.
go,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Good
because
tip.
otherwise you're going to cause yourself a lot of problems.
Yeah.
And I'm not a construction guru, but I am in the industry, so I just thought I might as well just share the tip just in
Great
case.
tip. No, that's a
Uh,
brilliant. That's a brilliant tip. This will move us on. But you've heard us with our rooms now, but this moves us on now to shelving. Now, my first tip for shelving is I've had a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people do this. This might work for you, but I'll give you my tips. A lot of people, when they buy shelving, buy bookcases. Now, if you're collecting mostly games, now bookcases are good for big box PC games, figures, special editions, collector's editions are good on a bookcase. If you're collecting games themselves, for instance, anything from Mega Drive to Switch, anything, do not buy bookcases. And I will tell you why. Buy DVD cases. Now, I think it's from a company called On Buy Online. I buy DVD shelves, and they hold I think they hold about 1,100 DVDs. Now, the difference between DVD cases and bookcases will tend to have only 5 shelves with massive gaps. The problem with that is you can then double stack on them shelves, but it's really awkward to get the games out underneath. Secondly, bookcases are quite deep. So then you're protruding more into your room. If you get a DVD case, they're very narrow, about 6 inches. So they can go flush against the wall. You're not protruding far in the room. Plus, they look. This is the anal side of it. They look very, very uniform. And if you get 3 or 4 of these DVD units, they've taken up 8 foot of space on your floor. They're 6 inches out, but you can store 3,500, 4,000 games on there. So they're made for storing that sort of media, whereas bookcases aren't. Now, like I say, there is a place for bookcases, and I started with those until I worked out a few years down the line that DVD cases. Hang on, I had three bookcases double stacked. I've now fitted them all into one DVD case, which has got half the footprint on the floor. So
Oh
then,
yeah.
and I bought these black ones and just went. And in the end, if you're on a Discord, you'll know. If you're regulars, you'll know. If you don't, my shed, I had one wall, 20 foot long, just full of these. I had 5 or 6 of these along the wall. All my games in uniform, PlayStation, Xbox, all the rest of it, blah blah blah. Um, that's my
RGT,
yes.
sorry, just while you're on that. So where you said that's a great, I've already wrote down this tip, so that's why I
Mm,
thought it'd be great chatting to you today because I didn't know that. But when you say about not to buy the bookcases as they're deeper and you're losing
mm,
footprint,
yeah,
so with its depth and height a bit
yeah.
wasted, I get what you mean with sliding the games
Mm.
horizontally rather than vertically. It's a great tip. But for displaying consoles, would you say then that's when it's good to have a bookcase? Because obviously that's a bit wider and deeper, and generally console boxes can be quite deep, can't they? Three
Yes,
to five
definitely.
hundred mil.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, if you've got a lot of big box things, like I say, special editions, boxed consoles, you can get some larger bookcases with only 3 or 4 shelves in, which can sit perfectly. You can display them as you want. Um, Also, what I was then in the process of doing, but now obviously I'm building a new shed, but I was in the process of doing where they only had a small top. I mean, 6 inches deep as all these DVD cases were. So they had a small top. I was putting a shelf on the top of those to then display along the top. So there is a way of doing it along the top, depending on the height of your ceilings, if you want. But yes, if like I say, sometimes that's nice if you have. I'd seen it done before where you have DVD shelf. Say you got your PlayStation collection on there next to it, a matching color bookcase with your special editions PlayStation on, and then another DVD case with your Nintendo Switch on, then a bookcase. So there's ways around doing it like that. I mean, don't forget, I mean, we're talking all about this like thousands of games. You don't have to have thousands of games. The games room doesn't have to be big. We'll get onto that when we start talking about consoles and bits. I mean, if emulation's your thing, you can have a nice big games collection just on your TV at home. There's ways around it. But at the moment for shelving, that's what I prefer to do games wise. Because I mean, I'm at about 3,500 games, so I need that space, but as effective as possible and as less footprint as possible. And I found these units really good. They were around £100 each, and you build them yourself. They're not too hard to build, but then you can put the segments in as you want. So I've got smaller segments for PS1 games, and then it opens up. Then you can even, if you want, you can put a little middle shelf in just with a display on or a light up thing in the
So
middle.
you can raise the peg sort of thing, and
Yeah, you can raise a peg,
lovely, love
sort of
that.
smaller, narrower, wider. Really good. They're great units and very, very space effective if you need it. But I also had in my game shed, I had an X shop display, double sided, sort of a triangular shaped one, which is now in Digital Monkery's collection. That takes up a lot of room, but it's unique. And I had all my cartridge games on there: Mega Drive, Super Nintendo, Master System, Nintendo Entertainment System. They're all on there, and so that gave it that 80s, 90s shop style, So there is displays you can pick up. They're rare, hard to find. If you've got a bigger room, that gives it a little bit of a look. But if you want efficiency of space saving, then go down the DVD shelf route. So
Hmm.
because I noticed with your Switch games, you have like the game racks, don't you? You use almost like a
Yeah, so yeah, we can go through. I've got some different sort of customized bits, but in terms of just we can get onto that in a bit. In terms of just shelving, again, I'm sort of at the utilizing space is a great thing because you've got such a big collection, whereas I didn't have and don't have as much stuff, so I can be a little bit more picky, I guess. So I could look for purpose things, but I've been very lazy and a little bit frugal with that, if you like. So I've sort of looked more at what I can get hold of, pretty
mm,
much for nothing. So before I say that, you just gave me a great idea because I was just thinking, I was looking to the left of me, like when you said about games, sorry, about custom storage cases. I've got some storage stands on a windowsill. So utilize what you've got. And the reason why I say that, your windowsill's a shelf. And something that I'm glad this has come up because it's very important. Something that your games do not like is UV rays from the sun.
exactly.
So if you've got any consoles, if you ever picked anything up that's yellowing, it's because of the sun. Now there's a shop. I won't say who shop it is because I don't want them to come after me. But I did show it in a short, so you can find it on my YouTube. But it was up in Bury, Manchester. I was visiting an arcade club. I went hunting in a day, looking for a CX. In that high street, there is a shop, and they've stuck their old stuff in the front window, and it looks almost hearing aid beige. It looks like an American school bus. It's so yellow,
Well, I'll
and
give you
I don't.
while you're on that. I'll give you a quick tip
Yeah,
because um, people think it's the sun that fades them. It isn't the sun. It's the sun once it's come through a double glazed window because the UV blockers actually turn it yellow. Now, this
that's
is true,
interesting.
and I've
Yeah, yeah.
tried this. I had a yellowed Dreamcast, and
Oh, you put it outside.
I put it outside for a morning in
Oh,
the
what an
summer.
experiment! Nice.
Yeah, and I covered the front little piece up. Right,
RGT's in Mythbusters here.
because I'd heard of this. There was a professor in America said, "No, you don't need retro bright, you don't need bleach, you don't need any
Yeah.
of this. If you put it in the sun, it will whiten it. It's only when it's in a UV blocked window that it."
Wow.
So anyway, I went
Wow.
outside. I put the Dreamcast outside. I took this cover off after about 5 6 hours on the front, and it was crystal white.
No way.
It was
RGT, this is
crystal.
blowing my
Yeah.
mind.
So I left it a bit more to get the other front bit to match it, which it did. And I need to do it again because once I got it inside under light, I thought, oh, it's still a little tiny bit yellow. But yeah, it's you can actually
Well,
obviously be careful of the British weather if
yes.
you live in
Yeah.
the
This
UK.
disclaimer, RGT, just in
Yeah,
case.
do not put
Don't
your
put your
white
whole collection
consoles, yeah,
outside.
and
Yeah.
then go to work because either it's going to be
Yeah.
missing or soaked. But if you've got a hot day and you want something there, you also have to
Yeah.
be careful of you have got capacitors, you have got bits inside these machines that are probably not going to like getting too hot. So make sure you've got it so it's not scalding hot. But if you've got a good, nice, bright day, um, believe me, even if you want to
No,
test it
not
with
in
an
the
old white,
summer. A spring day. That's what you
yeah,
want.
stick it out in
Keep it
a
in the
nice,
spring.
clear, bright day, and you'll be surprised
Yeah.
how that will change. But yeah, so
Well, we remind everyone in April. So you've heard it here first, unofficial controller
yes,
podcast with the latest myth busting
yes,
technology.
yeah.
We have got all of the facts and discoveries.
Sun
Um,
good, Windows bad.
yes. So what I was going to say with what I've done is I've got blinds which I've just completely turned closed. You
Great
still
idea.
do
Yeah.
get light come through, and it pains me to see them going on my box consoles behind me. So what I've done is people can black them out and then put more shelves up there. But
Mm,
I know some people have even bricked them up. Obviously, you don't want to affect the aesthetics of your house because your wife
no.
will probably kill you.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
but but yeah, what I've done, I've just hung a load of t-shirts, gaming t-shirts on the
Mm,
rail, and it literally has blocked it out perfectly. So yeah, so I just wanted to mention that. But in terms of shelving, yes, what I've done, and you probably won't see this anywhere, I don't think. You see it a lot in barber shops. If you ever go to a Turkish barber, you'll see that they seem to use what they can, and that's kind of what I've done. So I've used some scaffold boards from work, old scaffold boards, which were
oh,
no
nice.
longer able to use because it's got a hairline crack in it, and you can't. Um, so a scaffold board's basically 225 millimeters by 38 millimeters, I believe, and you can get different lengths, but you can cut them down.
Mm,
So they're perfect in terms of the depth of them. And all I did was I took them home, gave them a light sand. I went to like B&Q or Home Base or Wix or whatever it was. I literally just brought a nice varnish and I just stained all of them. And it's only when you look close, they look like they're really expensive, but they're just a scaffold board that was
yeah,
in a
they're
skip.
nice. I've seen them in your videos. They
So
look good.
yeah, and then all I did was I've got a friend. I could have used anything for brackets, but I lucked out really. One of my good friends, Sam, is a plumber, and I basically told him what I was doing. He rang me one day, and he went, "Oh, do you want me to make you some brackets?" I was like, "Oh, what do you mean?" He goes, "Oh, I'll just bend copper to what size?" So I told him the size, and he made me
Proper
the
steampunk.
bracket. So yeah, so it's proper custom, and it looks a bit like you're in a distillery because you've got the
Mm,
copper
mm.
with the timber, and then I could set the height. So again, I have regretted it a little bit. I'm glad you said about the space because it's good for consoles, but then you double stack the games, so you lose a bit of depth. You can't get to the games behind.
Mm.
And then I did some of the shelves are a different height to others, so I could have really have left one. I was thinking about consoles, height to consoles, so I
Mm-hmm.
made them all to the height of consoles. But what I should have done was kept a couple of shelves and made them lower, put more boards in, so I could have got more games. So
Mm.
just talking out loud,
Got
what
trial
I
and
had
error in it.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
I'm happy and satisfied with what I've got, but I could have really of tweaked it slightly.
yeah.
And I've had friends come in here. Lee Retro Chef, if he is listening, he was probably the first person to come and see my games room, and he was quite impressed with the amount of stuff that's in here. But it was like you could get a lot more in here if you tweaked things around. But again, it's your preference. I don't like necessarily things all white and clinical, whereas some people would like everything uniform. I don't mind
Exactly.
a bit of, yeah, mine looks more like a gamer's room rather than a collector's room. So it depends what
Hmm.
sort of look you're after as well. At the end of the day, I think it's not a museum. I want to be able to get to the games and I want to be able to play
Exactly.
them.
And
Um,
that's what we're saying on here. There's no right or wrong way to do
no,
it.
that's
You
it.
make
Yeah,
your games room how you want, but hopefully with our
that's
little
it.
tips on here, we can just give you these little tips just to push you in certain directions to help you along your way. But
Yeah,
also I
I
know,
do think picture shelves are good though, RGT. You know,
yeah,
like you can get like we were saying earlier, but that Callum's got, but you can get them from Argos like very, very cheap. I
mm,
know people get a lot of stuff from IKEA,
mm,
like the Billy bookcases comes to mind, but people do get a lot of stuff. So if you're buying brand new, you can get cheap, but do just have a look around because, like earlier you said about DVD shelves. Now, DVD racks are literally free. People are
mm,
just chucking them everywhere. Like if you went down your tip, you'd find them in the metal bin. I'm sure they let you pull them out, but I see them in charity shops all the time.
yeah,
You know, if you went onto Facebook Marketplace or Gumtree, people don't want them and they don't want to sell them because I mean, to be fair, people are starting to a bit
yeah,
like records. They're coming back in again, but the last couple of years, you can pick up CD racks and DVD racks for literally nothing. And to be fair, Nintendo Switch games probably slide in a CD rack
mm,
pretty much perfect.
yeah.
So yeah, just have a little look, have a little think, and go about it any way you please. I suppose have a little try and error.
Yeah, and I mean also, I also noticed with your cartridges, like your Game Gear, you have those. Are they from Etsy? You have those little game
Yeah. So
shelf.
anything people hear that they think, oh, I want to try that. Jump in Discord, let us know. And me and RGT will post any links to where we got things from.
Yeah,
We're happy to
definitely,
share.
definitely.
So the Game Gear cartridge holders I've got, they're from Etsy. I can't remember the seller's name, but again, contact me, I'll let you know. But if you just typed in Game Gear game holders,
Oh,
they'll
they're
come
nice,
straight
aren't they?
up. Yeah, I've even got, and you can change the colours. I've also got them for the Game Boy Color, so you can get bespoke cartridge holders, and they're very affordable because let's be honest, you don't have to have a lot of money these days to have a 3D printing machine. So they're becoming very more common. They're more household than they
Mm.
were,
And the thing
you
I
know.
like about them, they're not only just for storage, they're displays as well. So not only are you
Yeah.
displaying your games
Oh
because they're
yeah.
like tiered for the audio listeners, they're like 3D printed with Game Gear on the front. And
Yeah.
is there four shelves on them or three?
Yeah. There is one, two, three, four. There's actually six shelves on there.
Six shelves, so
Believe it
they're
or not.
tiered down like
Yeah.
steps, so you can see all the labels of the games, and also it displays them in a nice little Game Gear unit. But it looks good, and they're quite good for for space saving as well. Like, they're nice as well. So
Yeah.
especially for cartridges, I mean, like heading on to games. If you're into your retro and you like your cartridge games, I originally went down the route of universal cases. You can buy these online or in on eBay. These universal cases are cases from an American company, but inside they've got little tabs to fit various different games. So they fit NES, Super Nintendo. I think they fit Jaguar, Mega Drive, and then you can go on their website called the Universal Cover Project, and you can print off custom covers for these cases.
Yeah. Do it for
So
the
I done
Switch as well. Phenomenal.
Yes,
Yeah.
so I done all my loose cartridges I done in those. Now the plus side is they look like videos, they're all lined up. You can pick your covers you want, which look really good. Downside is, which I'm thinking of changing in my new games room, is the space. You then take up a shelf full of these video cases where you think, oh, if I just had the cartridges on end, I'd have a lot more room. So to have
Yeah.
because they're technically they're not CIB, they are just loose cartridges. So it's all about the look. But the plus side is there that option is there. If you're on a budget and you're buying loose cartridges, which especially in Nintendo world, as Scott will vouch for, a Super
Yeah.
Nintendo cartridge compared to a Super Nintendo complete in box, the box can be worth more than the game. So if you're on a budget and you're buying loose cartridges, this is a way of having a nice display, having them in a case, and also protecting that cartridges.
Can I?
So
Can I? I've got a little tip for you, RGT, that might be
yeah,
handy for yourself. I was just looking for it then, and I seem to have misplaced it. But for loose cartridges, I have, and I do this for plugs as well. We'll come on to cable management. But
Hmm.
all the ends of my plugs, I haven't done all the cartridges yet, so I haven't got too many. But a label printing machine are
Yep.
literally £20, like
Yeah.
from Argos or Staples. They are brilliant. You can change the font from like 6
Yeah.
up to 12, like a Word document. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like a lot of the Americans do it. We seem really obsessed. I mean, they've done it because games are more expensive, but UK
Yeah.
is getting that with Wave Retro. You don't have to go for a complete in box. I love the boxes, but to be honest with you, I'm not too bothered with the manual. In truth, with me, the only reason why I pick up when I get a box game, I go for the manual one is because I know if I go to set in the future, people aren't interested unless it's got the manual. So that's why I do it. But that's the reason why I've collected so many loose games lately with the handheld stuff is literally just because of budget. So if you are collecting on a budget, but you want everything to be uniform, like RGT says, you can stack them all and then you
Mm.
can get a label printer, stick them on the side. The only other thing I have seen, like on Etsy, is you can get like trays, where it's almost like a bit like a file effects with grooves, and you can scroll through the games. But again, that's quite deep. I think you're better off stacking them. And
Yeah.
N64 stack great, NES games stack great.
And also, you said about the
Um,
labels N64.
yeah,
You can buy. There's people on Etsy who make
yeah,
the actual game labels to put on the top of the cartridge. If you stand them up on end, you can see all the games listed along. Now, yes, that is a bit more expense, but if you want it so it's uniform and also looks like the cover art, you can have all your N64 games with all their cover art labels on. Now, same again as your personal preference. If you're really, really into a game and you want that CIB, go for it. If you just want to play the game, there's nothing wrong having loose cartridges. I've
yeah.
got as many loose cartridges as I have CIB box games. For me, it's about having a mixture of games I want to play on a budget, but also having nice displays, and you can mix that all up with cartridges to complete in box games.
And you might get lucky as well, like depending on what you're collecting. But if you're going really retro, I just had a little glance behind me on the shelf because I haven't labelled my 64 games yet. But next to them are Atari 26 and 7800 games.
Hmm.
Now those have actually got the labels pretty beautifully on the
Oh
side.
yeah, I have
So
mine
I've stacked them.
stacked.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
depends what you're collecting.
Hmm.
I mean Super Nintendo that doesn't quite lip round either, does it? So
No,
yeah, it just depends what you're going for really. The
exactly.
other storage shelf I have got, which again are quite easy to find. A bit of mixed opinion, really, but my Nintendo Switch games, I've got them on these towers. You can stack them, but they're not most stable things in the world. I wouldn't stack
Yeah.
more than too high. So I've just found a place for them. I've stacked them too high. I've got enough where I can store basically 200 Switch games, I think,
Hmm.
and then that's my collection there. It doesn't get any bigger. When new games come in, old games come out. Now, I think I got it through, I think it was just called ADZ or something like that. But if you typed in Nintendo Switch Storage Tower, if you see something come up ADZ, it's a very good website, very affordable, comes very fast. Now, they actually hold PS5, Xbox, they hold all the system games, but it's all the same link. Whether you click on the Xbox, PlayStation,
Hmm.
or the Switch, it comes up with the same thing. I think you can choose a slightly different color, like a black or grey. Now those are great. They're more great if you are of the latter, like PS5 and Xbox. Because only thing I have found, they're great for displaying my Switch games. They look great, but when I keep pulling games in and out, because the case is so small and it's designed for all of those platforms, sometimes they like one will fall down, and then they all sort of in that tower fall, and you've got to re sort of stack them in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not the case that they fall out, but it's very you've got to be careful. If I have a few
Yeah.
beers and stumble in the games room, if I pull a game out,
Everywhere.
I guarantee you I'll pull three out. So if I saw this around a friend's house and I wanted it for my Switch, I probably wouldn't buy it. So personally, for my Switch, I don't know if I'd buy this one again. I'd look for ones which are a bit more tighter because it's
Mm.
too loose, it's too much play. However, I think these are fantastic for any of the bigger physical cases.
That's a good one. Another little tip will say if you are really challenged for room and you're into your Switch, especially the Switch, um, I can't remember the name of this. It's another one. If you ask me on the Discord or contact me on Instagram, I'll let you know. I've got on my OLED Switch, it's a white case that slides over the front and it's got a little clear plastic front door that opens down and you can push 20, I think it's 20. I'm looking at it now. No, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. It's, sorry, 12 cartridges you can put in, and you can put memory cards in the middle, and it slots over the front of your dock on your Switch. So you can have all your games on display just as cartridges. I've also got, it's not much bigger than what a modern smartphone is, and not much deeper. It's about half an inch thick, and you flip it open. It holds 20 games and memory cards. So if you are collecting, but you're really limited for space, you can buy your Switch games either loose, or if you buy them, put the cases in a plastic box with a lid, put that in a loft. You can have them all stored in these cases, or even on display on the front of your Switch dock. I mean, that one on my Switch dock was less than £10, and it looks Nintendo. It looks really good. If you want pictures of that, like I say, let me know. I can send you pictures of that. We'll
So,
move along. We'll move on to
what about the console units, RGT? Because I know we sort of mentioned it briefly, but obviously you can add a bit of storage in there as well. Because I mean, how many monitors or TVs have you got in your room?
um, I've varied throughout the times of what I've had. I'll start off with my original setup. My original setup, I wanted to have like almost like the Billy boxes like you see in IKEA. A lot of people get them,
Yeah.
turn them on their side, and then they have the consoles in the box. I wanted a similar thing to that, but the thing that worried me was the size of the boxes. If you're sticking PS3,
Nah, the
Xbox,
consoles, yeah, I can't see it
I
fitting
was,
in there with the TV.
and also I've seen people have them put in there and it's completely blocked the sides, and I'm like, that is going to overheat in about 3 hours. So I wanted space. So what I done, um, I bought pre-packed, but also built it myself. I bought
Yeah.
two, four, six. I bought six Argos white melamine TV units. Now each of these had, I believe, one, two, three. They had six boxes in, and then they just had a 4-inch sort of kickboard on the bottom. Now what I done, I put two and then screwed the two on the top. So it looked like one massive unit with the kickboard in the middle, like a
Mm.
spacer. And then because of the corner, I had two more on the corner there. So I had six of these units screwed together. And then I bought LED plastic strip kitchen lights for under a unit. And I drilled through and wired one in each box and all six boxes on all six units. So it's 36 of these lights, which cost about £30. Then they ran off, four of them would run off one plug, so you had like 4 or 5 plugs, and then they were all lit up in the boxes, and I had them all stacked all the way around, and that's what I done originally. Um, when I after about 7, 8 years, I wanted to freshen up the games room, so everything came out, repainted, fixed, any holes of pictures I'd put up are redone, and I thought I'm gonna go down a different route, and I wanted. This is going to sound silly. Any fans of Red Dwarf or anything like that? I wanted a bit of a almost not steampunk, but more sort of mechanical look. I wanted something a bit more almost like an old spaceship look. So what I'd done, I bought warehouse racks. Now they had an offer on for this from Racken.com. They were two for the price of one. They were £149. I ended up getting two for £149. And they were you've probably seen these in warehouses. They're orange with blue struts. I bought two of them. The good thing with these is this is why I recommend these. These hold up to 800 kilos each unit. These things weigh a ton, but once they're in,
Yeah.
you can put as many CRTs as you want on that bad boy, and that ain't going to break it off. So, and so then what I done was I put a backing on, which if people have seen my pictures on Instagram, I put a fake wall backing in, which I drilled through big holes with a pilot drill, drilled holes through, and I then put, when you have a PC and you have a monitor raiser, so it raised your
Yeah.
monitor up. I had those all the way along as well. So I had consoles on monitor raisers at the back, and one's lower down at the front. All the cables are hidden underneath, went up round the back, through a hole in what I drilled through in the chipboard at the top, and then through to the TVs and monitors to hide the cables. But that's what I used. So I went from TV units, I'd sort of custom built to units, and then went on to warehouse racking for that more industrial sort of look.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, which was
Very,
good
very
because
nice.
I had one, two, three, four. I had five TVs on, so I had four CRTs and then a HD TV in the middle for all
Yeah.
the your PS3s and bits and pieces. But
Well,
that might,
that's my problem is getting the where to put the consoles. So
mm,
that's why I just quite like the TV stand. So like I've got three which I use. And then basically one's kind of just for a Switch and Nintendo Wii mainly.
yeah,
Bigger flat screen. Then I've got a little CRT, um, which can, a few things go into there, Mega Drive Master System, PS1. But to be honest with you, like I said, the one behind me, That's got loads of consoles on it. It's got GameCube, the original Xbox.
Yeah.
What else I got? NES, N64, SNES, Xbox 360, PS2. It's literally about 9 consoles plugged
Mm.
into it. But it's perfect because it's on one of them glass TV stands. I think those TV stands, you pick them up for nothing and everything fits under perfect.
Yes,
It doesn't look great. Like, it doesn't look as
but it's
nice as
playable. It's
anything
playable.
you've got, RGT. But again, depends what you want, guys. Especially, I'm on bloody YouTube, and mine still doesn't look good. So I don't mind. It's still what you want. So if you're not, for example, got YouTube, or you're not necessarily showing it, or you're not posting on Instagram regularly, and you just want it just for you, and it's for purpose only, and for function, then I would recommend the TV stands because you'll
Yeah,
get them for
exactly.
nothing, and they'll fit multiple consoles underneath.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Um,
also, the last thing for me as well, and it's probably the same as you, we're all busy, we're all working, and
yeah,
the last thing you want to come back and think, oh, I'm going to play Star Fox Adventures on the GameCube. You don't want to then be getting the GameCube out, wiring it up, getting the CRT out. If you can have these consoles set up, whatever you've got them set up on, if they're not in the way and they're plugged in, ready to go, and all you've got to do is plug the controller in, turn the telly on, that's what I want. I want them all ready to go. And that's, I think in the end, I've had 25 consoles or 30. It's about 25 consoles, I think, set up ready to go on all these TVs, and then which will move on to screens. So depending on what you want from your collection, if you want that original experience and you want CRTs, which are getting scarce and getting expensive now, and will eventually need maintenance, you can go down that route. You can get nice CRTs. I was lucky enough. I had a friend who worked at an old people's home, and they were then changing over from CRTs to flat screens. And they said
wow,
they've just put 5 CRTs in a skip. Do you want them? They all work fine. I said, make sure they don't get wet. I'll be there in a minute.
yeah,
One of them was 24-inch 4x3 Panasonic, beautiful picture. Um, and there was a bush one, a sharp one. There was a big 20. I think it was a 28, big heavy duty one. But I took them all. They all worked. I've got a couple in storage, a couple I used. Now, yes, that it's not always practical to have loads of CRTs set up, and it's not practical to try and get them. You might know people who are throwing them away. You might be able to get some from your local recycling centre. Now, the other options for that is if you want to use original hardware, but you want to use a modern TV because the modern TVs nowadays, your 4K units won't come with composite, they won't come with component, or SCART. So your options there are to get HD cables, which I've had various luck with. Probably best I've the best results I've had is from my Dreamcast. I got a Calcio HDMI lead, and the reason that looks so good is because the Dreamcast had VGA, which upscaled on HD looks really good. Looks really good on a flat screen on the Dreamcast. The only issue is there's about 4 or 5 games that won't play because they wouldn't play through
right, okay.
VGA. They would only play through component. So that is one thing to bear in mind. But that was about a £15 lead. Now I have tried HDMI leads for my original Xbox, and they look trash. They're 15, £16. They look trash. Now the way I'm probably going to go in my new shed for space saving is I'm still going to have a CRT, which will be my Panasonic, to run a few of my consoles I really want to play in that original experience. But I'm going to go down the route of an OSSC. If you don't know what an OSSC is, it's an open source scan. So it's let me get the full name for you to make sure I've got this right.
I think
So
it's what I think it is. Is it where
yeah,
you put all of your cables into it and then you've got a flick of a switch?
well basically what it is. It's a custom little box. Now these used to be four
Yeah, I think
five
that's what I'm
hundred
picturing.
bucks.
Yeah.
These used to be a lot of money. Nowadays, you can start picking these up. They've come right down. There's bigger companies making them. You can pick a decent OSSC up for £90 to £100. Now you might be thinking, hang on, RGT, £90 to £100 for one console. No, what this OSSC will have, it will have a SCART input, it will have a component input, it will have a VGA input. Now, what you'll do is you'll buy a £10 SCART adapter. Make sure all your old consoles have SCART because that is the best picture output for those. And then your SCART selector will use the one SCART port on your OSSC and into your telly and HDMI. So you'll basically have, if you've got a NES, a Super NES, Mega Drive, Master System, put them all in a big SCART selector and then plug that SCART selector into your SSC. So then for £90, you've got all them consoles running HD and at good quality as well. Because these HD cables, one, you'll need an HD selector box to put them all through, and two, they're very mixed quality, and 9 times out of 10, they're not brilliant. They don't do a lot. All they're doing is a lot of these will transfer an analog signal to HD rather than actually upscaling it, whereas an OSSC will upscale it to the best it can be. And it'll have its own little screen on, it will have its own little inputs you can change if you want scan lines, etc. That is a
How many
great
consoles can you go into that RGT? It might not be
well,
what
like I
I'm
say,
thinking
there'll
of.
be one port of each, but what you'll
Right,
do,
okay.
so, but what I mean is, so if you buy a SCART cable for each of your retro consoles, so your NES, your SNES, your Mega Drive, your Master System, buy the SCART cables, which you can buy. You can buy new ones as well. They're cheap, they're well made. And then have a SCART selector box, put them all into that, and then plug that one SCART selector into the OSSC. So you're running all from that one socket. You'll be running all those retro consoles through, and you'll have a great picture on that HD TV as a very
So
affordable
literal
way.
multiple, yeah, because I've seen
Because I
um
always use switcher boxes. I always have used switcher boxes. It's so much easier for using because some of the older CRTs only have one port on. I've always used switcher boxes. And then, like you say, I've got one of the
yeah.
little label printers and I've got an N64 Mega Drive on each button. So I just click each button that I want to play.
See, that's so much better. Yeah, so
Yeah.
mine's terrible. I'm literally don't do it how I do it. I mean, look into something that RGT's done. I'm just not very tech savvy with certain things. So
Mm.
I've literally just got plugged to labeled and I literally just have to go behind, which is a pain. Because you know it's like you store things in your games, you might have a little light above your telly. I have to
Yeah.
literally physically pull the lead out, which is why I have more than one TV. Because there'll
Yeah.
be only so many things I'll play on each one because it's annoying keep pulling them out. But I know there was a gentleman who lives not too far from me. I haven't seen him for a long time, but he used to have a massive games room collection. And he was the first time I saw one of these boxes, and he had like 10 consoles, like I've got by a telly, but everything was plugged into it, and he just literally flick of a switch. He didn't have to
Yeah.
get up, everything was in there. I don't know if you know Retro Break, Nick, tuber I
Mm-hmm.
love to watch on YouTube. He's got something similar mounted. All of his videos are blurred in the background, but he has done the odd game room tour like once a year, and he's got a big behind him. He's got like a big thing mounted on the wall, and that is just a very top spec of what you was describing, I believe. So
Mm.
yeah, anything that sounds quite reasonable price. So yeah, maybe share it with everyone in the Discord. I mean, I'll
And I
probably
mean,
check that out myself.
even
RGT.
if you're using a CRT, if you've only got one CRT, make sure you upgrade your retro consoles to SCART cables and then get yourself a SCART selector box because then you can have up to 8, 10, maybe even 12 consoles through that one SCART port on your TV. And as I used to on my CRT, I had my Panasonic, I had a SCART selector on the top. That was consoles going in there. I had another CRT with another SCART selector with that going in there. Then on my HD TV, I had two four-way HDMI selectors. So I could have 360, PS3, PS4 Pro, Xbox One, all running up. And then when you want to turn which one on, you just click onto that, and that all go through one HDMI port. So for two HDMI ports, I had 8 consoles wired up. You never got to tap a plug out.
Mm.
These selectors are cheap now. They're pass-throughs, they're cheap, they're little buttons, and they work a treat. But like I say, if you want to put your old consoles on a modern TV, I'd highly recommend an OSSC, and then with the one plug, still use your old SCART selector, plug it through, so the OSSC is then that little buffer into your HDMI. And they work a treat. They're really good. That's a great way of doing it. Now, going on to consoles themselves, you might think, well, hang on, RGT, I don't want 20 consoles. I ain't got room for 20 consoles. Well, there is options. There is options. If you don't want all those consoles, I mean, I've got a Hyperkin Retron 5. If you don't know who Hyperkin are, they make a lot of controllers, they make a lot of accessories, but they also make consoles. Now, there'll probably be people screaming at this for listening to this, saying, yeah, but RGT, that's not FPGA, that's not. it's emulation. It technically is emulation, but basically what a Retron 5 is, you've never heard. It's got slots on for multiple consoles for your one HDMI. So if you want to buy the cartridges, but you don't want to buy all the old consoles, which might need maintenance, you can buy a Retron 5. Now, it comes with a controller, which is absolute trash. Don't bother. Buy the original controller, which you can plug. They've got 6 ports on. So you can plug NES, SNES, Mega Drive all in. If you don't want to do that, we'll get onto controllers. It's a modern options. Now, this has got Super Nintendo slot. It's got a Nintendo slot. It's got a Mega Drive slot. It's even on the front got Game Boy slots. You can play Game Boy, Game Boy Advance. So you can play Game Boy Advance. You can play Mega Drive. You can play Super Nintendo. You can play Nintendo. It's multi-region. You can play Famicom. You can play Super Famicom. You can play Genesis. On top of that, the Master System converter works in it. So you can plug that in. You can play Master System on top. On top of that, you can play Master System card games. It's very versatile. On top of that, loads of menus. You can have upscaling. You can have filters. You can have scan lines. You can have what you want. On top of that, you can have an SD card slot. So you can then download literally the whole library of cheats for that system. Every single game cheat on an SD card in the back. So then when you go, it says enable cheats. Yes, I'll come up with a list. What do you want? Infinite lies. Bang, you're off. Now, the reason some people don't like these because they are an emulation. So basically what they do is when you plug your cartridge in, it dumps the ROM and then plays the ROM itself rather than playing FPGA. But if you want a cost-effective way, I think I had a Retron 5 from when they first come out. I think I paid £120 for Retron 5. Out of the box, for one plug, for one HDMI lead, you can play up to 12 different systems. And I think there's even a Game Gear converter for it can plug in. So you can play up to 12 different systems, I believe, on this. And it's a really, for one console when you live in them. So you can collect the games you want and you just play them for your big TV. It's a great way of doing it. They've done a Retron 3 as well, which done not 3 consoles. They've even released a tiny little square Game Boy player. HD Game Boy player. So you have a little tiny console on the side. You can have that and play Game Boy. But the Retron 5 plays all Game Boy. Yes, it's not that original look of a CRT. You can make it look a bit more CRT. But if you just want to play the games and you want them on your big TV, it's a great investment. I can't rate it enough. But you can also go on to, like, if you've got Deep Pockets Analog, the company Analog do specific consoles. Now they are FPGA, HDMI FPGA. If you want to know what PGA is, it's running that original game from that cartridge straight away. And they've done a Mega Drive one, they've done a Super Nintendo one, they've done a handheld, they've done a PC Engine Duo, so you can play the PC Engine CDs and two cards. And they're now
it's basically emulating the hardware. So it's like a mock console, a bit like these
it.
Mega Drive, but licensed. A bit like these Mega Drive Minis and Atari Minis, Commodore.
Yeah.
You get all those, but it's actually plays the original.
Yeah, it plays the original, and
that's cool.
And they're now announced an N64, which is coming out now. What I will say about Analog is they're very limited in numbers. They're hard to get hold of. They're expensive. I mean, you get a hell of a system, probably the best that is out there for FPGA. If you get the handheld, it's aluminium. It is a nice piece.
Yeah, that's the only one I've seen. It's a little handheld for the Game Boys,
and they do these other ones as well, which are really good. But I think they're good. I mean, you've even got a Polymega. Now, they've never kicked off as much as what they were. If you haven't heard of Polymega, that is a modular console. Originally, they touted it as FPGA. It's now an emulator, but you get a base console unit with your cartridge slot in, and you can take the front off and add the modular you want. So if you want a disk system modular, you put it on the front and that'll play PS1, Sega Saturn, PC Engine CDs. And you've got these little modules you can add to it. Now, as far as I know at the moment, it hasn't come to the UK. It is US only. I've seen a few people use them. They look pretty good. There's not many games that don't play on them. But other than that, they look decent. I mean, I will say about the Hyperkin Retron 5, there may be the odd game that won't play, but I have very rarely come along one that doesn't. But there is ways. You don't need to have 30 consoles. You don't need to have every console going like me and Scott have. If you want to play the games and you've only got your big TV, there's ways around that and ways of doing it. like I say, I covered cables. I mean, let's go on to a bit of cable management. How do you deal with your cable management then, Scott?
Well, mine needs sorting out. I'm embarrassed to say. I had a friend, Ed, round not too long ago, who was playing some games, bit of arcade up here, and it's terrible. So I've literally just gone a very traditional way. Um, I have literally just got extension leads and I've tried to run them along the edge, like the cable, hide it behind something. Then I've got the reel, and again, I've got the plugs just in that. My cable management isn't good. Um, I mean, I could do things better, but I'm a bit reluctant to um, getting some little cable tidy pins or, like a little board or conduit or
Mm,
running along the skirt. And I'm a bit reluctant to make them tidy, getting them all straight, coiling them up with a cable tie because I keep moving things around so much.
that's the
So for
problem.
me, yeah. So if you think, say you've got a small space, it's got to be really tidy. You're like, right, this is where it's going. I'm having this here and that here. It's only gonna be this many consoles, and this is how it's going to be. Then great, I'd say get everything nice and tight, reel it up, get some cable ties on there. You can get, I can't remember what they're called. Like when your Skyman comes around, it's like a little pin, like a little nail, and you've got like a little return
Mm,
on it which clips a cable. Don't know the exact names for them. So those are all great. But for me, because I'm always moving things around, I haven't really felt the need to do it, and I'm not too bothered with how it looks really. But like I say, if it was in the lounge and I had my games room, it's just open to the elements, and my all my games and collection was just in the living room, and you had people coming around all the time and seeing it, then I'll probably be a bit more of thinking how to hide things. For example, like my TV, I've got it mounted on a wall, and in a cavity in the wall, I've put the cables down. So
mm.
that's something I could do. I just haven't needed to put that extra effort in
Yeah,
because it's not really on show. So it depends on how much it bothers you really and what you need to do and what you don't need to do. So it's again, like most things, it's purely preference, I suppose.
yeah. I think if you know what you want when you build your games room, if you've got a lot of consoles set up, you know how you're going to get them set up. You've got a picture in your mind. Then yes, go for those cable management, the more permanent solutions, the tacks, the even
Yeah,
the trunking on the wall, whatever. Now, I was a bit like you. I had a permanent setup, but it could. I wanted to have the option of changing it. So what I done, I used those. I don't know if you've seen them. They're like that spiral wrap that goes around the cables. You know what I mean? It's like
yeah,
the plastic
yeah,
wrap.
yeah,
So what I done is where I had my selector box. So I'd have the SCART cables going in. So it'd be Master System, Mega Drive, Super Nintendo, original Xbox, PS1, for instance, for example. And as they came out the back, I had one of those cable wraps all the way down to the back to then where the consoles were, and then about 2 foot from where the consoles were, they then separated to the console. So I basically had one cable coming out the back that you could hardly see going beside the TV.
yeah,
And that way, if I needed to move them, I could unwrap that cable pretty easily, unplug, put a new console in, wrap them back up. It's not the quickest way, but it's a way of so it's only semi-permanent, but it also
yeah.
you haven't got cables lying across the back of your console unit. You've only got one big thick cable that you can hide pretty well.
Yeah,
That's what.
lighting can help that as well a little bit. I feel like because
Yes.
obviously you have like custom lighting in your own games room, and like I've got a just again it's hanging again a bit the cable, but I've got like strip lighting's
Yep.
fantastic, isn't it? But you'll
Brilliant.
find yourself forced to, and they're so cheap they literally just stick on the wall,
Yeah.
and that gives you a nice bit of lighting, but you'll end up you have to do something with the end of it because it does come to an end, so you'll have to
Yeah.
sort of hide it in
Yeah.
some
I
way.
put them underneath
Weird
because
out.
it's obviously two shelves on my racking. So like the TV's on the top, and then underneath, I put the LEDs down the middle of
Yeah,
the underneath, and then it shine down little my consoles up. A little thing, but it's nice. It gives you a bit of light to see what you're
yeah,
doing, but also it gives that look. It gives it shows those consoles off, which that's another way. A brilliant way of a budget way of doing that part of your games room. Um, Moving on to games. Everyone's different. There's no right way of what you collect, how you collect. I mean, you might be into getting a full set of Wii games. You might be into anything Sega. You might be, collecting whatever you want. Now, different people collect different things. A lot of people, when they first start collecting, just grab any game for that system they can. Now, in some ways, like Mega Drive Master System, that's quite nice because they're rare. You don't see them very often. They're quite good to collect for. If you're going down, like I say, the Wii route, there's going to be a lot of shovelware on there. Now, all you're going to be doing is setting
Yeah,
up shelf space. Now, if you want to collect anything that goes for that system, DS, Wii, by all means, that's your prerogative. You do that. Now, for me, um, I love, especially for them systems, I'm in no rush to collect for. So I have probably 100 Wii games, but they're all games I want and I've either played or want to play. So, like from anything from what is it, Cursed Mountain to the Mario's to Mario Party to some of the rarer sort of games you don't see so much of, the Silent Hills, or there's some good shooting
nothing but
games. So
bangers, RGT. Nothing
yeah, it's
but
like
bangers, and a few golf games.
yeah, but for me, because I find if you've got things on there like My Pet or Brain
Yeah,
Training or anything like that, it's nothing I'm ever going to play. And all it's doing is it's making you look like you've got a big collection, but when you actually go through it, it's nothing I'm going to play. Now you
yeah,
might like that, and everyone's game is different what they want. But I think if you're in a limited space, there's no rush. You don't need to go out and fill them
yeah.
shelves straight away. Fill them with stuff you're going to play and you want to play.
And that's a
That's
bit
my
of a
tip.
dead, yeah, a bit of a dead giveaway, I think. Those games you just mentioned, people tend to call them shelf fillers, and I hear it
Yeah,
a lot on
yeah,
certain groups and stuff.
yeah.
And they go, "Oh, has anyone got any shelf? Sending some games from shelf fillers, some old FIFAs." And that to me is a dead giveaway for someone who has started a games room, but they're not enjoying the process of it. So again, it's up to you, but enjoy the process of it because once it's full, it's a nightmare. So I'll just plead with everyone, like, do not rush it. People think like obviously everything looks better complete. When you've got gaps in shelves, it's not good because it might not look good. But just there are other ways, like rather than having all games side on, choose your favourite game and then just turn it face on to take up a bit more room.
Exactly.
Little things like that. But when it does pay me when I see people buying games and they go, "Oh, has anyone got any shelf fillers to sell?" And I think the fact that you're saying that, like, just calm down, relax. You don't need
Yeah.
to like it doesn't happen overnight. And then once it's full, like it's a nightmare. Poor RGT's had to move house because he's outgrown it. He's outgrown it.
And I think also what you got to remember is you'll start off with shovelware. If you've got say 50 shovelware games for a system,
Yeah.
but actually two decent games and two games you've played and want to play, that 5 years later, those 50 games could have all been games you wanted to play rather
Mm.
than just these random games that are just on there for the look. It might be your thing. You might be going for a complete collection. If you're going for a complete collection of a system, fair play to you. If because some people are
Yeah.
more collectors than they are gamers, so it's all pro. But if you're a gamer, get games because you'll find it really hard if you've got your walls filled with these rubbish games. You'll get a few years down the line where you're thinking, right,
Yeah.
what am I going to play? And you'll just be going along going, no, no, no. Whereas if you've got heavy hitters, there's so much you can choose from.
Yeah.
You'll just be, I'll try that, I'll try that, I'll try that. So it's down to personal preference. But if you're going as a
Yeah.
gamer
It's
rather than a collector, then yeah, don't just hoover up all the shovelware out of the charity shop. Be selective and curate what you want. Make it curated to what your
yeah.
tastes are. I mean,
Some
going on. Sorry, carry on.
No, I was just going to say something that you just made me think of just while we were talking out loud is there's something we haven't considered, and there's probably going to be a lot more of these as from the younger generation going forward. We're in a bit of a sort of more headspace aware now in terms of stress, declutter, minimalism, all these sort of things. We've got to think with e-shops with full electronic games and stuff. Like for example, co-host of our show, Sebastian, he doesn't have physical game collection.
No,
So
no,
you might be listening to this and you might be taking some parts from it, but you can still have a games room. You might not have a physical collection at all.
yeah,
And I've seen this before. I've seen someone have a nice little, home office and then they fill it with things which they like. So they'll have, some nice plants and stuff like that. They don't want games everywhere, but then they might have, some I don't know, is it the amiibos, like the toys? They might have some
yeah,
gaming
yeah,
posters on the wall. They might have some framed bits, some actual toys and figures. They might have it real minimal, and they might just have one TV, and then they don't play retro. They just play PS5. They just play Xbox Series X. They've got a nice, comfy gaming chair, or they're a PC gamer. So you might be listening to this. It's not necessarily you have to be a collector or a retro games collector.
definitely
It
not.
could
No,
just be you're a gamer and you want to go in the room and you don't want to think, oh, there's clutter, like RGT said. You don't want to be buying things for the sake of things because clutter does bother you and you can't relax. If you go into your games room and you can't sit there and enjoy a game for an hour, just sit in your games room. And if you can't just sit there for more than an hour, then something isn't right. It's got to be a place you want to go and game. And I've been
Mm,
guilty of this because I've had times where I've not been happy with my games room. I've done nothing about it. It's too much mess. I remember one year I went boot sale mad. I was buying things knowing I could flip them and make a profit. And then I got lazy. I couldn't bother to go CEX. I got bored of the process. I had stuff everywhere. Um, and yeah, I just ended up with loads of things. And then I ended up just constantly gaming downstairs. So I had to be, when my wife was happy for me when she was out, or if she was happy with me playing the big screen, and she'd be like, "Oh, why don't you just play upstairs?" And I was kind of like, I didn't want to. There was a good few months where
yeah.
I didn't, and then I went in and I was like, right, and I had a big declutter, and it's a hard thing for us as collectors. RGT, you probably feel the same way. Is you hold on to things. I don't want to use the word hoarder, but there's a little bit of you that there's a fine line between the collecting and the hoarding, and you hold on to things and you think you don't want to get rid of it because even though you might not love it now, you've had your time when you want to get rid of it. But as kids, it's all happened to us. We've got rid of things, and years later, we've wanted them back. It's cost us an arm and a leg.
Mm,
But sometimes you've got to be brutal and go, do you know what? I don't need that. I haven't got space for it. I'm going to get rid
exactly.
of it. And then I did that. And then I've done a little series about it. I did a few videos changing my games room. I asked people on YouTube to comment ideas and I put some of them and I showed it back what I'd done. And I managed to make it a place where I was happy with. And
Mm,
that was why actually, going off on one a little bit, but that was why in 2024 I did very little buying. I didn't bring much stuff on. I didn't visit CX independent stores. I did a whole year without going to one car boot sale because I didn't want to be in a position where I was picking things up for the sake of it. And it is hard because especially as someone like me and you, RGT, we
yeah.
don't need to look up games. I know the value of them. I see a game
Hmm.
and my brain's calculating how much it's worth. So
Mm,
I see things and I'll pick something up for 50p knowing it's worth £3. But really, it's not worth my time in petrol driving somewhere unless I need it to
yeah.
trade it in. It's very counterproductive. So
Yeah. Exactly.
um, don't. It's again no pun intended for marathon gaming. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Just take your
Yeah.
time with it. Really
And
do.
also, if you are listening to this thinking, well, I want to play retro, but I don't want to have a big collection, there's ways around that as well. This leads us into um, this isn't sponsored, and I know I talked about this company a lot, hashtag not spawn, but Evercade. Now, if you want to play retro and you're on a budget or you want to have a little collection, but you just want the one
Yeah.
system, get yourself an Evercade. I've got an Evercade versus
Or if you
R.
don't want an old TV, that's
Yeah,
perfect, isn't it? If you just
exactly.
want to put it in your lounge,
It's
you
very
can't have a
small.
games room.
It's a
Yeah,
little
you might be
console.
listening to this and
Yeah,
you thinking, I'd love to have a games room, but I can't. I tell you what, I haven't got one, but I would recommend an Evercade for that very
yeah.
purpose.
I haven't got the handheld. I have played a handheld. I haven't got the handheld. I've got the Versus R. It's a little console, little flat lid. It sits under your TV. It's on Wi-Fi. You can do updates on there. The games tend to come out under £20, which will be multi-carts. You get manuals in the cases. You can line them up on a shelf. They're small. They take up little room, but you've got a little game collection there. They play really
Brilliant.
well. They're great ports. I think there's 70 cartridges for the system, which is in total, it's over 500 games there is for
I
this
was going to
system.
say there's about half a dozen games at least on on
They
each
got a
game,
lovely
isn't there?
interface.
Cartridge.
They look good on your big TV. If they've even done little things because you can put two cartridges in at once, so you can have up to however many games on a cartridge. So, like I've got in mine at the moment, I've got Tomb Raider, which has got 1, 2, and 3 on a cartridge, and I've got the IREM collection in, which is about 5. So you've got like 8 games all on your screen ready to play. But if you put two certain games in, that will give you a hidden game as well. There's hidden games in the
Oh,
system. Yeah,
RGT, hold up. I did not know this. And also, you said this
yeah.
isn't a sponsored video, but you're sitting there
No
shirtless with your Evercade pants on,
tattoo.
Evercade hat on,
Yeah.
Evercade tattoo across your forehead, Evercade poster. I think I could see George in the background eating a pot noodle with his Evercade pants on.
Yeah,
So, are you sure? Because you seem to know a lot about. I didn't know that about the free hidden game.
free hidden game,
Never
and
heard anyone
also
mention that.
they give you a monthly
Another
game.
exclusive.
Yeah, they give you a monthly game to download as well. Um, controllers are
Wow.
controllers are decent, but if you this is another thing I'll go on to with your old consoles. If you don't want to use the Evercade controller, you can get yourself aftermarket controllers, which I go between for my systems. I use for my older consoles. I use 8-bit do. controllers, which are wireless and have a dongle to plug into your systems, which work on the Hyperkin and will also work
Yeah.
on your Evercade if you want a wireless controller. Also for more modern consoles, like your 360 or your PS3, I use Retro Fighters. They do a Retro Fighters Defender controller. I'll grab. Hang on.
Oh yeah. Please do.
This is the Defender controller. Now, this is the blue edition. Now, this will have a dongle with it, right? It will work on PS1, PS2, and PS3, this controller. And you can pick this up for about £35. You can get various different colors. It's a fantastic controller. Now, you try and pick up an old, decent PS3 controller. They're getting expensive. If you buy one that's new old stock, it costs a fortune. If you buy it secondhand, you don't know how well it's going to do. These are brilliant. I've also got a Retro Fighters one for my Dreamcast, which has a VMU slot in to put in. So
Wow.
it's a modern analog stick for your Dreamcast. These are
That's
brilliant. So
cool.
you ain't got to worry about your peripherals. There's ways of doing it. And also, these work on multiple consoles, old and new. You can buy them, even if you're gaming on an emulator on a PC, you can buy a PC dongle for them. So,
Yeah, there is small companies that do a lot, isn't there? Like I've
yeah,
had one of, yeah, there is. Like, I've had some of them custom controllers for like a 6 button one for the Mega Drive. Um,
yeah.
yeah, you're right.
I've got
There's
an
quite
eight.
a lot.
I think I paid 1999 for an 8-bit Doom Mega Drive one. It's got a
Yeah,
little Mega Drive dongle with. It's fantastic. It's the D pad is as good as a
yeah,
Mega Drive D pad, even probably better. 6 buttons, little wireless as well, so you ain't got to worry about booting the cables and ripping it out of your Mega Drive. Brilliant. But they
yeah,
work also on your Hyperkin, and you can get the USB dongles, and they'll work on your Evercade. So
yeah,
they're so versatile. They're cheap and they're really reliable. And they're made of modern parts, so the membranes last longer, the button
yeah,
presses last longer, so they're really good. That's one way of doing it if you're on a budget. If you are going for game collecting, people always ask me, where do you get your games from? Where do you get your games from? Well, originally back in the day, it would have been eBay. And then you always found that retro video game independent stores were more expensive. Well, them days are gone now. I would recommend eBay as a last resort because even CEX is cheaper 9 times out of 10 than eBay. I know you take a bit of roulette if you're
I'd
buying
say
online.
bundles are still. I'd say when you're starting though, RGT, I would say bundles are good. For example, starting my Game Gear collection from scratch, the
Yeah,
best thing was really bundles because eventually I was going to buy 10 games, but if I bought 10 games at once, I was paying the price of five. Now it gets harder once you've got a lot of stuff because you end up with
yeah,
doubles. But
exactly.
yeah, if you're starting from the beginning in terms of games and even consoles, you can get some good bundles because
That is a good
people,
point. That is a
yeah,
good point because I mean,
they,
there's certain sellers on eBay that will do genre Pacific bundles, which are quite good. So you'll see a driving
yeah,
bundle for PS2, so you'll get Burnout, you'll get Need for Speed, you'll get 5 or 6 games for £25. So that is a good point. There is bundles on there, but I think as you go through for if you were looking for specific games,
yeah,
CEX, if you're in the store, you can look at them. If you buy online, as everyone says, a CEX roulette as to what you're going to get, but they tend to be slightly cheaper than the eBay. Also, I can't recommend independent game stores enough nowadays. You have a port of call, you have a shop to look round. You don't always know what you want to buy. Sometimes that's nice to view, and then you'll see a game you haven't seen for years and think, "Oh, I was after that. I forgot about it."
yeah.
You could talk to the guy. 9 times out of 10, they're already been tested. You're buying from the store. You're seeing the product, and nowadays, I don't think they're overpriced in an independent store.
No, I
I
was just
tend
going to
to buy
say,
most of mine from independent
yeah.
stores now. I go to Last Level in Norwich. You go to which your one in
Well, I was going to say I'm
Southend,
quite lucky. I've got two. Yeah, I've got Miso Retro Games and Retro Hunter, which I'm
Retro
very good
Hunters.
friends with the
Yeah,
owner. So I go there, I try to get there as much as I can. But the only thing I would say, and this is no disrespect to independent stores, I love them and I always say support them first. However, there is a clean cut difference between CEX and independent stores. And then what I would say is obviously with CEX, obviously you've got that nice trust factor of taking games back, etc. Of course, you get it with independent stores, but all I would say, because I've been stung before and it goes both ways, I've had bargains before and I've had to let them know because I'm good friends with the owner. I've gone, by the way,
yeah.
so he in independent stores, depending on the size of the store, they will have a game in and they won't be aware of the fluctuation of the market. So he might buy a game in, it might sit there for years, and it might have gone up or it might have tanked. Now I've overpaid massively for a game, and I've underpaid massively for a game. So I would say is, you don't want to offend them or be cheeky, but if you're picking up a few games, have a little look before you go in the shop. If something you're looking for, and before you go to a counter, just double check because Do You CX is quite a good guide. If the
Hmm.
game's out of stock, obviously it's your imagination of how much you want to pay for it. It's buyers or sellers market. But do check that because I've had conversations as well, and I've mentioned it to my friend Ali, and I've said, "Oh, by the way, I said to him recently, I said 360's gone through the roof, mate. You might want to have a look at some of these because you've got them as a pound, and I can tell you these are all a tenner in CEX." And
Yeah,
he very modestly said, he said, "I do not change the prices." He goes, "Because I've brought them at the time, so I would have brought it at what it was worth. So if it's
yeah,
gone up more, then obviously you're getting a bargain. But what I would say is check because it goes both ways. I brought something which I thought was worth a lot of money because it was priced quite a bit, like a Mega Drive game or something like that, or a Super Nintendo game. I brought it and I realised I'd overpaid quite a bit. Um, so
mm,
I would just say, just do because these are small businesses, guys, and they don't have the same resources. And obviously, imagine if you're in a shop and you've got to check everything. It's outrageous.
mm,
Now there is actually a store which operates completely differently. I don't really like the style of it because it kind of puts you off picking up a lot of stuff. But I brought Beavis and Butthead on a Game Gear a long time ago before I was even collecting for the Game Gear. I met up with a few tubers at a gaming market. I think it was Black Country Games Fair, so I guess Wolverhampton way.
hmm.
And there was a retro shop. There's a local lad there called Dow. He goes, "I want to show you some game shops, guys, while you're here. Some independent stores." I was like, "Brilliant." We went to one of them that was open because it was a Sunday, and some shops closed on a Sunday in the afternoon. And we went there, and nothing was priced, but it was games floor to ceiling as far as your eyes could see.
I've been one. I got one
And
round here like that. I got one round here like that.
and I was like, "How does this? There's no price." And he goes, "No, you take it to the counter, then they work out the price." And all they did was they look at eBay. So I kind of said, like, so I didn't get the biggest bargain, but I thought I could have influenced that. I could have known what I wanted. I could have set up a few, you could wait till one sold cheap, couldn't you? And really fluctuate it. So I wasn't too sure about how they done that. I was like, "Oh, I'm not sure about this,"
Yeah,
but I guess they look at sold.
the run round my way is about 20 miles away. It's called Games Exchange in Lowestoft. And the way he done it was he'd have stuff everywhere. He had some right hidden gems,
Yeah.
things everywhere. But you'd go up and he'd go on eBay and he'd always be 20% less. He'd give you
Yeah,
a
it's such
reason.
a. I get it, but there's such a queue. So like,
Yeah,
I was taking ages, and I thought, oh, everyone must be trading in. And I got to the front with two games, and I realised he spends 5 minutes looking up how much they're worth.
there is
I was
that.
like,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
there
And
is
obviously,
that.
you
So,
want to, if you go in with, say, you've got a budget, right? I'm going to spend £50 today. I don't know if I'm picking up one game or five because there's no prices.
and it must be hard to evaluate your stock because if you obviously don't know what you've paid for that. So
No, you don't.
no, so if the game's gone down, it could be that. But um, well, I'll add a few more tips in here before we wrap up. One more little thing I'd say is if you're collecting Nintendo cardboard, I would thoroughly recommend protector boxes,
Yeah,
shark protectors, or there's various different makes. If you're going for a big collection, it will cost you more up front, but the more you buy, the cheaper they are individually. So if you can afford to get a pack of 50, 60 of them, get them, you make them up. One, they make your boxes look even better and they're nice and square, but it protects that cardboard. And we all know what
yeah,
Nintendo
nice and
cardboard's
rigid.
like. Yeah, makes them really good. You can get them for big boxes. You can get them even for PS4 games if you want to protect those. I get them for my rarer PS1 games or the dual cases, double dual cases.
I've seen them
So
for consoles as well. RGT. I haven't got one, but I've
yeah,
seen them.
I mean, if you really want to go expensive, you can even get some acrylic cases made up. But I wouldn't, unless it's really rare and expensive, that's and you want it on a shelf shown up, you can get acrylic ones made, but they're not cheap. And also, I know Digital Monkery, our guy off of Discord, will be laughing at me now because I always say this. And I think they think I drone on a lot about it. But if you have older consoles or you're buying an older console, believe me, it is worth getting it recapped. Get that console recapped because if it's over 25 years old, the caps years ago were crap and they leak. And if they leak in various places on that board, that console will die and there is no way of repairing it.
And is
So,
that the capacitors? Is that what you mean by
yeah,
recapped?
get all your
Yeah.
capacitors done. I had, for instance, I have a local guy do mine. He's an old TV and radio engineer, but he's very good at soldering. I bought a recap pack for my Mega Drive Mark One and my Mega CD Mark One. The two packs cost me £20 of caps, but they're modern caps. You get them from these retro game stores online. And he charged me £60 for recapping the two consoles, which was 90 odd caps. So for an outlay of £80, I will never have to have those caps done again because they're modern caps. They will last the life of that
And what you mean
console.
is it won't break and you won't have to buy a new console. It's just
Exactly,
maintenance, isn't it?
exactly.
Yeah.
So you're saving yourself the money in the long run, and also I thought my Mega Drive, Mega CD played really well. He turned around and told me that they had been leaking, and I was weeks away. I just timed it right. Not only that, when I put it back on my CRT, the colours absolutely popped. It looked totally
Oh yeah,
different.
of course.
So
Yeah.
you don't, because it gradually goes, you don't realise. So I mean, I
Yeah,
have,
I haven't done it personally. The only thing I've been forced to do it on is the Game Gears because they
yeah,
are the most notorious for going.
yes,
So I've had to, and that's how I heard the recapping
yeah,
service. I
yeah,
didn't know, and I'll be completely honest. The reason why I said capacitors, just in case anyone didn't know, because I'm into my games, and until I got the Game Gear. I saw it always says when I was looking at buying one, it always says recap, recapped. I thought, why is everyone going about recapped? I thought it meant it had a new case on it, like the capping, the shell. So
yeah.
I didn't know what it meant. So I thought I'd just make it clear for everyone, just in case you're as thick as I am.
Yes, yeah, it's just all the capacitors in there. They do leak after time. They do damage your board. They will solder all those out and replace them, and it's worth the money. I mean, my Amiga CD, which is a rare console, was very niche. Most people won't want an Amiga CD. They're quite expensive to buy now. But I went to a specific place that does Amiga CD, upgraded cables, upgraded power supplies, which is another thing. And the recap pack for that was £15. Now, £15 and about £30, £40 to get it recapped is a bargain in my eyes for a console that's probably going for £350, £400. You've secured the longevity of that console and you won't have to replace it. And plus, if you are using old consoles, I highly recommend getting modern power supplies because them old big plug supplies, they get hot. They're not very reliable, especially if you're using 8-bit computers. Get modern SCART cables, which you can buy. There's a great guy on eBay that makes all these cables for old systems. So you can you can plug them into LCDs, SCARTs, and they look really good. And also the power supplies. If you've got an old Spectrum, if you've got a Commodore 64, buy a new power supply. I've done all mine. They range from between, depending on how rare the console is, £10 to £30 a power supply, but you won't have to worry because them old brick power supplies can smell a burn, and if they pop, they can fry your system.
Yeah, I
So
always worry
replace
about
them
my
power.
yeah, I always worry about my NES one, but it's actually I haven't changed any. The only console which I have been very warned, and I'm actually looking to sell it. You've got it as well because I saw it when Dan the Games Man toured your games room. You had the
Yeah,
same console I've got. It's an Amstrad. I'm trying to remember. Is it the
GX
GX?
4000.
Now I was warned
I've
from my
replaced mine. I've
friends.
already replaced mine. So
I was warned. My friend Si, Ginger Hippie Gamer, he told me do not plug that in, Scott. He goes, the
yeah,
reason why they didn't sell so many units was because they were catching fire.
yeah.
So I was like, hold on
I
a
can
minute.
I can send you a
Um,
link for that. I think my new power supply for that was like 12.99.
oh,
And it's
brilliant.
just, yeah, so it's a modern power supply. So that's a
I
good
haven't
tip
even
for you.
plugged it in to test it. So
Yeah.
I was too scared. Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good way. Also, don't forget, you don't have to have a massive collection, but you still can have original hardware. Get a Mega Drive, get yourself an EverDrive. Yes, they're a bit expensive, about £100 with an SD card slot, so it's got that original cartridge. You can put all the games you want on there. Obviously, you've got to be
Yeah.
careful of licensing. We're not telling you to pirate games. We're not saying that, but there is ways of playing games without having to have a wall full of cartridges,
I've
a
got a
wall
good
full
tip
of
for that
discs.
actually.
Yeah,
One we can sort of wrap up with a little bit is a bit of a story I can share. So I've got a friend, and this is just recently. Um, I'll shout out Peter. When Peter, so he actually just texted me earlier while we was recording. Very annoying, but never mind. He doesn't have a games room, but and there's some people might be listening and this having a bit of this is what they want to have. But he's got a man cave, which is very common. A lot of people have man
yes,
caves,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then they want to have a pool table in there, or a lot of time they want an arcade machine. So I've got friends at football, and they've said, Scott, I want an arcade machine, and they've told them how much they are or what to get, and they've gone down the one up route, and that's all they want. It's for show,
Yeah.
They want to have one up arcade, and that's fine. It does what it does, but they're not great for me to be honest with you. I would always recommend if someone was a proper gamer to get some of those, a bit like a Retro Pie or like a PC, an original
Yeah,
arcade cab, a bit
because
like one
you've
I've got, and it's
yeah,
got all of the games.
I had a
Yeah.
custom. My wife done me a bar top, so she had one made for me for
Well,
Christmas. So
that's what I was going to say. So my friend
yeah,
Peter, so he wanted an arcade cab, and I said, look, and he's a proper gamer, he's into his games, and I said to him, look, I told him how much the cabs are. I said they're a lot of money, and obviously it's one cab. Unless there's something you love and you remember, you want to get a Pac-Man or whatever it was. Like I've got a few original cabs to the right of me. I've got a Frogger and a Donkey Kong, and I'm getting a Miss Pac-Man soon. So I've got some original cabs, but they're limited for that, for that game. Now, what I play all my games on is a cab behind me, which has got like a computer in, which is what you just mentioned.
yeah,
So I just said to him, look, you should look at getting like one of these bar tops, because that way you can put it on a barrel, you can put it literally in a bar, and you'll have everything in there. And he wasn't too sure. And I said, mate, you can pick them up cheap when you think. And I found one from someone within the community, a very good deal. And I think we only paid 300 or 400 quid for it, but you can pay, just 500 or 600 quid. It might sound a lot, but it's a price of like a modern console. It might
yeah,
be the price of a Xbox or a PS5, but that will have everything on. And don't forget, it doesn't age like a PlayStation 5. It'd be worth the same money in 10 years' time because it doesn't get
yeah,
old. And people make them custom built them. He's got a lovely one, and it was actually built. A very big YouTuber actually built it. So I'll give a shout out to him. Pete, as well, his name is, on a retro tip. He's actually done a video this recently of 10 years on YouTube, over 400 videos. He's a very big channel. He's got over 40,000 subscribers. Really nice guy, and a good friend of mine. And he actually put me into contact with this bar top, and I got it from my friend's bar, and that was all he wanted because he
yeah,
wanted, he was like, oh, I haven't got room for all my games. He was going, oh, I'm gonna. I don't know if you've ever been to like NQ64. What am I thinking of the one in London? There's one called Four Quarters, and that's in Stratford. It's my friend Pete who's building the he's like shed bar,
yeah,
basically a bar. He was trying to replicate what they have. So it's a bar, then you got a pool table, consoles and sofas. I said, look, you don't need all that because he was worried about room, what ones to have. I was like, just get one of those. You can
yeah,
even get like coffee tables now
yeah,
where it's got a screen in it. There's a lot of options. So do just have a look. Don't
yeah.
think, right, it's not a games room till I've got an arcade. Don't be fooled by
No,
all that.
I
Just
mean mine's right
I've
behind me here. You can just see mine just
yeah,
open out here. Mine is a bar top. Wife had made for
they're the
me.
best.
This is
Yeah.
by I don't know if he's still going. It's quite a few years ago now. There's a guy who's pulls customs cabs in Blackpool, and he make them to your design. So if you want a Turtles one, that'll be yellow and
Perfect.
green. This one's black. I've got R-type marquee on the top that lights up, and I've got blue light up buttons. That's 2-player. It originally came with God of Game on with 900 games. After about 6 years, the board went, and I thought, oh no, it runs on VGA on a HP monitor that's in
Mm.
there, but you wouldn't think it looks just like an arcade. So I upgraded to Pandora's Box 6, I believe, which has got 1,300 games on. It cost me £30 to import that box with 1,300 games on. Screwed it in, plugged all the wires back in. It can have HD on if you want to upgrade the screen. It's got SD card slot if you want to put 10,000 games on it. And the only extra I bought for that is I bought I went to, if you go to UK arcade supplies, I bought a stand. So it stands up at stand height. You can stand and play it. So it's a bar top on a stand with little shelves in. You can put games or trinkets in underneath.
Brilliant.
But if you're limited for space, these things are
They're
amazing.
perfect, mate. And
They
you can
play
move them
well.
easily.
And
Yeah.
if you want to get into it more, when you get down the line and you want original Sanwa arcade parts, you can just pop the buttons out, put some better sticks in, put some clicky buttons in. You can do what you want with them. They're easy enough, but I'm happy with what I've got on there. They play well. There's plenty of people doing custom ones on Etsy or actual proper websites. And for the money, like I say, this was about £400. I've
Bargain. Yeah, for what you're getting on it.
all the games on it. And if you just want casual retro gaming, you'll never have to buy anything else. You're all in on it.
Yeah.
I will say before we wrap up and do our tiers list of bits and pieces, above all, right, make your games room your own. Whether you want figures, collectibles, whether you want big boxes, posters, whether you want different lights, whether you want it to look like an arcade, whether you're just going to have an evercade in the corner, we're all gamers, we're all nerds. Do whatever you want to do. There's no right way, there's no wrong way. Don't listen to people who are online who are purists saying you should do FPGA, you should do this, you don't have to do anything. You just do whatever's you. And hopefully, with what me and Scott have said today, there's little tips, little tricks there. There's new ideas for you to take your room forward or to start a room. You've probably heard us talking on here as well about our Discord and our bits and pieces for the show. Discord will be in the show notes. If you want to jump on, come and say hi. If you're building a games room and you want some tips, come on there. We've got people in there, like I say, with converted garages. We've got people who are going for full Dreamcast sets. We've got people who import Japanese consoles and only play certain games. We've got people who just do everything through emulation. So there's something for everyone. If you've got questions, jump in there, come and chat. It's very friendly. We're a very chilled out community. Same with Scott. Obviously, Scott's Marathon Gaming on YouTube. He's got his own community as well. Brilliant guys on there. You can ask them anything. There's no animosity. There's no hierarchy. There's no right way of doing anything. Just chat, share what you like in games, share what your games room's going to look like, and there's just a plus for everyone. We do have subscribers as well. Show's always free. If you listen to us for years, you know that. If you're new to the show, it's always going to be free, but we do have the option of a tiers list subscriptions, which just helps with the run of the show, helps us pay our subscriptions, help us buy equipment, helps us put shows on, helps us do everything we can to keep the show coming each week. We have 4 tiers, which we have a $3, which is you get read out in every show, which you'll hear in a minute. We have $5, which is read out in every show, and you get yearly art merch because we change our artwork every year, which we'll soon be doing for the new one. So keep an eye out for that. $8 is read out in every show, yearly art merch. Plus, you get access to Unglorious Chat. If you want to know what Unglorious Chat is, it is the section of the Discord, which is just for those tiers and above of people who subscribe. Now, we're not gating anything off, but it's also just a little private area for people to chat if they want. The rest of the Discord is all there for everyone to use, but it just gives them that little bit more reward to say, here's a little chat room for you. Thanks for what you do. And then the top tier is $10. That's read out in the show, yearly art merch, access to your Unglorious Chat, and you get a quarterly Zoom chat with the host, which I think the last one I've done was end of November time. So I reckon the next one will be end of February, start of March. I've done the last 2. I'm not even doing the next one, but we'll try and get Scott or George or maybe even Seb if the times link up in America, or Bobby from New York. Basically what we do, we chat for about an hour, hour and a half. We sometimes record them to put them on YouTube. And we just nerd out. We talk about games. We talk about systems. If you want to come on and show us what your pickups are, show us on the screen. We'll all be there. We'll all be having a chat. Get yourself a couple of beers or your drink of choice, and we all just talk games and have a little nerd out for an evening. Great fun. And it's a little reward for us giving back to you. You come and chat to us guys. Ask us any questions. Tell us how rubbish we are on the show and how our opinions on games are stupid. But just come and have a chat with us. It's a great bit of fun. And it's good to keep in contact with the community and chat to all you guys on a regular basis. Right, we better move on to our tiers list, our subscriber list, beg my pardon there, Scott. So we will start with, I always get this one, the one-man George fan club, Carlos. Notice there's only one guy in his fan club, but it is, bless his heart for doing it, it's Carlos. Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you very much, Carlos. And also thank you to Firm Returns, absolute top guy and very active in the Discord. Really nice guy. So big shout out to Firm Returns.
Yeah, brilliant guy. Also got Trestles New York, long time listener and sub to the channel. So thank you, Trestles.
And then a big thank you to our Italian friend, and not too far from me. Big up the one and only Bada Bing Star.
Oh, yeah, what a legend. Great guy. I mean, that guy has got everything from emulators to consoles to collections. He knows everything from emulated handhelds packed with games to original systems. He knows his stuff. Then we've got Tingle Tuner with his great Switch and 3DS collection. Amazing.
And from great Switch collection to a great Sega Mega Drive and UMD collection, he is the master of the challenge accepted, and that is Digital Monkery.
And if you want to know what Challenge Accepted is, it's a monthly competition he runs on our Discord. This month is Fall Guys. You have to get as many crowns as you can. That was a slow start to this, but I was the first one to get a crown. Now Scott's got a crown. Now Rose Space Monk has got 2 crowns. So it's heating up a bit.
Oh, I'll be back on there tonight.
And
Don't
it's
you
not only
worry.
for bragging rights. You get a custom-made sticker for the winner, and sometimes you get extra prizes. So sometimes Scott will do a mug or bits and pieces we'll chuck in, but it's more for bragging rights and just a bit of fun, really. Next up, we have Roast Space Monk.
Thank you to Rose Space Monk, and also a big thank you and shout out to the Gaming Graham, an absolute hero. So big up to the Gaming Graham.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks to him. Also, a massive thanks to Paul Border, your legend.
And a big shout out to Boba. And I believe he is. Is he the community? He's our community manager. Is he highly ranked?
His community manager, his Discord manager. He's a guy you don't mess with.
Oh,
This
yeah,
man's a
he is the
unit.
man.
Yeah,
I've got to, so I need to put proper pronunciation, otherwise he might kick me off the show. So a
yeah,
big shout out to Boba.
yeah. And
Powerful.
then we got this guy. Never heard of him. Marathon Gaming. Who's that? I don't know. Never heard of him. But
Some sort of square. But I tell you who isn't a square. This next guy, Sealmaster Elliot, I've heard he has got a fighter jet in his garden, right? But not ready to fly into the sky. It's sealed, it's wrapped, it's mint in box. He
yeah,
is the Sealmaster King, Sealmaster Elliot. We
yeah.
love you.
Still got the tag on and everything.
Yeah,
Then we've got
everything there.
I think he must be 5 times champion now, Ginge. Absolute legend at challenge accepted, but an awesome guy as Ginge. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and Ginge was our 2024 Challenge Accepted King. So
Yeah,
he won so many months. He actually had won more months than anybody else. So he got a very special prize, and he got a little custom trophy. So he
yeah,
is our champion. So someone has got to challenge him. So if you think you're good at games, even if you're not, just jump in a challenge accepted, because you never know what game is going to be picked each month, and you never know, it could be the game you're good at. We've been tipped
exactly.
off that Ginge is very good at Crash Team Racing, and that is why we will never choose it, because he doesn't need any help.
It
Right,
destroys.
yeah. Next one is big shout out to the one and only YouTube legend Harvey Retro.
Yeah, check out his Enigmatic Productions, brilliant YouTube channel. Then we've got the lovely Emma Sharp. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you very much, Emma. A big shout out to Nowhere Near Berlin. He is the guy that he ties my tongue up in knots every week, trying to think of what to say. So I'm going to keep it very short and sweet.
Bless him.
Thank you to Nowhere Near Berlin.
And if you ever heard the game Forever Skies, then Greg works for them, who's nowhere near Berlin. So he's in the industry. He's a great guy and been a long time supporter of this show. So thank you, Greg. Then we've got the one and only Mumsy.
Then we have, I'm glad this is forward for me. We got the RGT fan club, baby.
Yeah,
Big
the
shout
one and
out to the
only.
RGT fan club. We don't know who's behind that,
Mm,
and what the movement is. We don't know what the limitations are on where it's going to go, but
well,
it is the RGT fan
I
club.
know it's anonymous, but I know at the moment it's up to 30 members. So George, you've got a long way to go.
Oh,
So next we have Pete Brocklehurst. Thank you very much for your long-term support, Pete.
and a big shout out to Billy Marmite, an absolutely legend again. Billy
Yeah.
Marmite, big shout out and thank you to you, mate. Top
Yeah,
guy.
thank you, Billy. Also, my good friend Simon Price. He's not very well at the moment, so I'm wishing you.
Oh, poor
Yeah,
Simon.
I hope you get better soon, mate. You're probably listening to this, and so I hope by the time you do, you're better, mate. So best of luck, fella.
Now, this leaves me with the last and probably the most funnest
Oh.
one. And I've got very good at doing this. And I've been really tuning in. I've been practicing. So, Ray, right, would you Longhorns took the jam? What and the what do you mean Elon's got the loop? Oh, he's got it up in space. I forgot you guys took it with you. I'm
Yeah,
gonna have to
sorry.
go in dry. I'm gonna have to go in dry. Right, get ready. If you're driving your car, pull over at a lay-by. Do not adjust your stereo other than turn the volume right up. If you're sitting on a train, pull out your iPhone jack. It doesn't have a jack. But unplug it. I want the whole carriage to hear. Let everybody know of what's going to happen. Announce it on a tannoy. If you're working in a supermarket in Tesco's, press the button and say, attention, please, because this is Matt Zangief.
Oh, nice. We're
Hurt
we're
my voice.
contractually obliged to do that every show. So if you're wondering why we do it like that, we have to. That's
If
his
not,
special.
Boba will sack us.
Yes. Yeah, so that's our list. If you're ever interested, there's a little bit on the end of our show notes that will just say support the show. Have a look. If not, no pressure. Show's always free. Always listen. Jump into Discord. Come and have a chat with us, guys. We'd love to speak to you. Love to chat games. If it's the first time listening to the show, we do weekly shows. Normally we do news, and we do what's happening this week in gaming, what we've been playing, what we're hoping to play. And this is a little, sometimes we do these little special shows, little sideline shows. There'll be more of these this year. So I hope you enjoy them. Thank you for listening. Thanks for tuning in. And if you are watching us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, give us a subscribe, give us a comment, tell us your tips. Put some little tips down in the comments.
Yeah.
If you're listening on your podcast, we've got well over 250 episodes back catalogue. Download them, have a listen, give us a review, give us a like. Come join the Discord, come say hi, because if you're happy gamers, we're all happy gamers, aren't we, hey? Don't be lonely, jump in, let's all have a bit of fun. So thanks, Scott. It's been good. I've enjoyed this.
Thank you to you, my friend. Really enjoyed it. Thank you for the tips, buddy.
Brilliant fun, yeah. Anything when it's come to gaming and games rooms, I love chatting about that, as you can probably tell. But it only leaves me to say, like I say, thanks for listening, thanks for joining in, thanks for watching. And there's nothing wrong with being given the unofficial controller. That's what you do of it that counts. See you later, Scott.
Peace out, homies.